Alright, time for the next video in this series, and that is all about starting to plot your novel. I know plotting might not be for everyone. I know some people will refer to themselves more as a pantser. If you're in that category, feel free to jump around this video and see if anything is going to help you. But I am going to try and plot out this book with you guys so that we can go through this journey together, and we're going to try and figure out what is going on. Hi, I'm Hananya Leclerc. I am a multi-genre writer who shares tips and tricks and talks about her life. Now, without further ado, let's get into the video. So in this case, I am going to be referencing the book Save the Cat Writes a Novel. It is one of the books that's referenced a lot on AuthorTube, and that is also how I found out about the book. It is kind of a guide to help you figure out the story beats and all of those kinds of things. So I'm going to be referencing this book quite a lot in this plotting stage. If you are unfamiliar with it, or if you don't have it, if you don't want to get it, it's all good. There are so many different books on writing out there that are going to be helpful, and that might be helpful to you. If you feel like you use a different kind of strategy to plot, usually feel free to go with that. I'm not saying that this is the way. This is just the way that I'm going to do it for this book. So if you don't know about Save the Cat Writes a Novel, it basically says, in this revolutionary novel writing guide from the best-selling Save the Cat series, novelist Jessica Brody demystifies each beat, making it simple to craft your own bestseller with easy-to-follow templates. So that is kind of why this, I feel, might be helpful, especially because I have talked about kind of the beats and beat sheets and stuff like that, and they basically just come from this. It's not something that I create myself, it's just me learning about it in a book. So for this video specifically, I think we're just gonna go over Act 1. Act 1 has 5 story beats, and that's what we're gonna go over in this specific video. We'll cover the rest of the story beats in different videos, so stay tuned for those, but for this one, it's just Act 1. So I'm just going to go over some of the beats that are outlined here. This is a very short description. The book goes in further detail on it, but for the sake of this video and keeping it brief, I'm just going to read out kind of the summaries of those, and that way we can get started. So basically we're building this on a 3x structure, which is usual kind of structure for story writing. A lot of the stories and books and stuff is going to be structured in 3 acts, and in this case we're going to focus on Act 1. So Act 1 starts with an opening image, and that is basically just setting the scene, and it says here a before snapshot of your hero and their world. So it's kind of just setting the scene, getting to know the characters, seeing, okay, well, this is their life currently. Then if we move on to the second one, it's theme stated. So this one says a statement by a character, typically not the hero, that hints at what the hero's arc will be. That is what the hero must learn, discover before the end of the book, also referred to as a life lesson. So this can kind of be whatever you feel your character is here to learn, or what they are gonna be setting out to do, and kind of how that translates into kind of a lesson that they need to learn. So the theme stated can be anything that you want your character to kind of develop, kind of the character arc that they're going on. So if you don't know about character arcs, it's basically trying to say, okay, your character starts here, but you want them to end up here. So you want to be some sort of development of this person, and you want sort of a growth, or maybe you don't want that, but that is usually kind of what happens. It could be that you want your character to realize that their life isn't as bad as they maybe think it is. So if your character is in a situation and they're just fed up with everything, and then by the end they're kind of in the same situation, but they realize that it might have not been as bad as they thought it was, and they kind of come to appreciate their life, that could be kind of a life lesson. It could also be something completely different. It could be let me try and think. For example, the anthology short story that I wrote, my theme was basically kind of more, hey, what makes a person a bad person? Or kind of my theme was, repeated actions define people. So it's not always if you do a one-off that defines you as a person, but if you keep repeating the same action, that could be something that is going to define you. But how many times does it actually take for you to become that kind of person? So that is kind of more or less the question and the theme and the things that I focused on in that story. For the one that I'm gonna write in this scenario, I don't know. We will get to this. I think what I'll do first is just read out the different story beats, and then we can dive deeper into them as I try and do this for my book. Okay, so next up is called The Setup. It says an exploration of the hero's status quo life and all its flaws, where we learn what the hero's life looks like before its epic transformation. Here we also introduce other supporting characters and the hero's primary goal. But most important, we show the hero's reluctance to change, aka learn the theme, while also hinting at the stakes at risk. Should the hero not change? So this kind of goes back again to the setting the scene kind of thing, also having other characters introduced and finding out kind of what the theme is and see that the character doesn't necessarily want that to happen. I'm already struggling to try and piece this together in my head for this book that I'm gonna try and figure out. To give an example of kind of the theme stated, the setup of my short story, which I can reference a little bit here and there as an example because that's something that I've already written, something that I kind of chose there as kind of this scenario where it's like, okay, this is what needs to happen, but do I actually go do this? It was kind of the character in this sense kind of thinking, I feel like I should go help this person, but is that the right decision? Because I should not, but I also kind of want to. So it's kind of a struggle, I guess, in a way. And I don't know if that's like the best reference to this, but there's bound to be also examples in the book if you're unsure what this would mean. There is going to be examples further along the line because I think it goes into like each one of these things kind of in more detail. The fourth one on the list says the catalyst, and I feel like this is also very much so referred to as an inciting incident. So this is the life-changing event that happens to the hero, which will catapult them into a new world or new way of thinking, an action beat that should be big enough to prevent the hero from being able to return to their status quo setup world. So this is kind of what sets the story into motion and what happens that is really gonna kind of compel this character to change and to do something, to take action, something that is irreversible kind of and has happened and you can't go back. Then the fifth one in this list for today is the debate. And this is a reaction sequence in which the hero debates what they will do next. So it's usually presented in the form of a question such as, should I go? It says, should I go? But I would say, should I? The purpose of this beat is to show the hero's reluctance to change. So it's kind of a little bit of an overlap with the setup where it's like the hero doesn't want to change and this is what they're content with. But here it's actually them questioning, do I do this? Is this the right decision? And that is kind of the first act for you in a little nutshell. So for the purpose of doing this video series, I wanted to give you guys an actual look into how I do things and do this with you so that we can implement this together and I can show you how I do things. So I've chosen a vampire story, which I'm really nervous about because I've never ever written a vampire story before. Not really anyway. And I'm very nervous to kind of plot this out as well because I don't really have a good clear idea of what I want or where I want to take this story. So this is gonna be interesting. But as for any of the projects that I focus on, so if it's a project that I really want to work on, I dedicate a notebook to it. So let's pick a notebook. Let's start this. Notebook and save the cat. Let's move over to the desk and actually try and set this up. Okay, so here we are at my desk. I am going to grab the Save the Cat Writes a Novel and try and plot out this story idea that I have. I'm going to pull up the Scrivener file that I had for it. It's just a little tiny document with a couple notes that I have, and I'm going to try and figure out how to actually plot this book. I feel kind of okay about it, but I'm also a little bit nervous because I don't necessarily know where to start. But that's why we're here. We're gonna try and work this out. I have the little notebook that I'm gonna write in. I have tons of these little like binder stuff with rings, so I can just flip it over, start writing in it. So that's also what we're gonna do. We're just gonna write down some stuff in this little book and just try and figure some stuff out. So let's get to work. All right, so I have the document pulled up that I have originally for this story. It's not a lot that I've written down. I've basically just written down some character name ideas and a little bit of like scenes that I had in my mind. It's not very coherent, I would have to say. It's just kind of a brain dump that I did a while back, and this kind of is how I usually do my brain dump. So I will just kind of write down everything that I can think of in this story setting. So I have quite a lot of just random scenes that I throw into a lot of my brainstorms. So this has been that. There is, I feel like, not a lot that is really there. It's a lot of different idea stuff, but as for like actual plot, it's not necessarily there. So that's what we're gonna try and figure out today with the beat sheet. So I feel like I don't really need to reference my document that much. So we're just gonna focus on writing out some stuff in the notebook based on the beats in this book. Okay, so for this scenario, the opening image kind of sets the scene as we've mentioned, and I am a little bit struggling with this just because I don't know what I want as my opening image. I feel like there are different ways to approach it, and right now it should kind of just give a sense of these other characters and this is their life. I don't really know what I want my opening image to be. I currently basically have 3 different ideas for this. I have one where it's just kind of maybe this is where we learn one of them is a vampire, but at the same time I'm like, is that really kind of setting the scene in a this is where we are status quo kind of thing? Or do I do that it's just the 2 of them, that, you know, one of them in the relationship doesn't know the other is a vampire? Or do I go straight into kind of an action sequence that basically leads them to not be together at this moment? And now that I'm talking about it, I'm almost thinking maybe I can just have kind of the scene be that one of them gets introduced to the family of vampires and it's them setting out to do that. Where it's like, it's in a way new, but that is kind of what their life is now. I guess I'll continue and try and get through Act 1 and see how that feels with what I currently have in mind, and see if maybe the later beats will help me figure out where I start this. As you can see, I'm gonna leave some room between opening image and then the second one, just so that if I have any more ideas, I can just jot that down a little bit as well there. What I've done for the opening image section, I've actually read through these pages that go a little bit more into Act 1 and the opening image, and it also gives us some like ideas of other books. So here it goes into The Hunger Games, Pride and Prejudice, and also Confessions of a Shopaholic, which helps you kind of see a little bit more so the different ways that other books have approached this. So that really helps. I'm now going to read over the theme stated for myself and see how I can implement that into this story. But as you can tell, none of this is like a linear thing. I'm going to probably go back and forth between this quite a lot to try and figure out exactly how I'm gonna plot this story. It doesn't always have to be perfect because we will figure this out as we go most of the time. At least I do. I figure out a lot of the things along the way, but I'm just gonna try and write out kind of an initial idea of beats, and then we'll figure them out later on. I am struggling a bit with this, I'm not gonna lie. I feel like plotting this out takes a lot of energy out of me to try and figure out exactly what to say and what is gonna be great, which is a little bit a worry for me on how the rest of this is gonna go. I usually just try and discover things, and I have certain things that I want to hit, but I never really define them in the beat sheet kind of way, so I am struggling a little bit. Okay, as I've said, I'm having a little bit of a hard time trying to plot this out. I've written down kind of the initial story beats for the first act. However, I don't feel as confident in it as I really want to be. I currently just have some like, maybe this could be the thing, maybe this could be the thing, maybe this could be the thing, and I'm kind of just more brainstorming what it could be than actually picking something. And I think that is completely normal because I haven't even thought about the story that much, so I kind of want to figure out the story before I really nail down the specific plot point. So I think what I'm gonna do before I reveal what I have written down as my beats, I will continue recording these videos, go over the rest of the acts, and then we can come back and look at what I have written down and how I'm gonna kind of figure the story out and kind of have that as the beat sheet. I do feel like it's more difficult than I thought it was gonna be. I obviously have written stories before and I have plotted out stories before, and I know that it's not easy and it comes and goes, but at the same time I thought I was going to just have an easier time. But I feel like I'm doubting myself a lot in this on, is this the thing that they want me to write down? Just because I feel like usually I don't really pinpoint the different plot points. I just kind of write them and it somehow works, I think. But I want to do this with you guys, so I want to make sure that I do this as well and hopefully be able to then figure out some things that might be something that you're struggling with, and then we can hopefully talk about it together. So for now, I'm gonna leave it here. I know it might not be what you expected or what you hoped for in this video, but for now, this is what we're gonna get, and I'm gonna continue working on these, recording them, and hopefully figure out the story as we go. If you can't wait, then the next video is going to be up here. If it's not here, it will be in a couple days, I promise.